Welcome, everyone. Hello, hello, welcome. Nice to see you. Excellent. So just as we're getting set up here and waiting for a few new people to come join us, if I can see your video, put your hand up if you invited anyone new to this meeting. Okay, Barry invited someone new. Excellent.
I made it known at council that it was open and that we had 48 participants the first time.
Excellent. So we're hoping that the word keeps being spread, that this is a valuable thing for people to participate in and for us to get your input. So this is great. So we'll just maybe wait a couple minutes as people are just coming in still. In the meantime, if you could write in the chat something that you love about this time of year in Perth. What is something you love?
Global Meet. Please enter your passcode followed by the pound or hash.
And this shows me that you remember where to find the chat and that you're there. So your favorite thing about this time of year, getting your bike out, pumping the tires, and planting seeds indoors. Awesome. Thank you, Liz. Garlic poking out of the garden. Ugh. Good one. Ice melt on the Tay so I can go kayaking. Excellent. Walking around downtown. Last week, sunshine was so nice. Yes. What a quick transition we've had with such warm weather and the snow melting. It's been really nice to see. I like the warmth. Yeah, Barry. Yeah. So does anyone have, anyone new here that wasn't here last month when we did our first meeting? Yeah, Ben, excellent. Welcome. We are going to be doing a little bit of a recap, a quick recap, and Brad is going to help us out with some of that recapping. And then today's topics are growth management and economic development. So we have Brad that's going to bring us through the growth management portion, and then Connor who's going to help us out with the economic development. So we look forward to getting your input and really getting a sense of your thoughts and just sharing anything that's new as well. And Ben, yes, enjoying coffee on Coots patio. Perth is such a small and friendly town that easily accessed by most people just by walking. Many activities to get involved in. Yeah, so nice, especially when it's sunny out and you can easily like sit and enjoy a coffee outside. Well, I think let's get started. So hello to Brad. Let's take, Brad, what do you think? I guess I'll take us through a little bit of the slide presentation just to get us more familiarized. And then, so here we go. As I said, growth management, economic development. My name is Katie Giddings, and I am your public engagement consultant for this project. And Bradley Wright is sitting over here in the town of Perth. Hi, Brad.
Hi, thanks, Katie. Yeah, I'm Brad. I'm the Director of Development Services. And for those who are new to our process, yep, this is our official plan review process that we're doing. We have Katie involved helping us out in terms of these meetings. We're having public meetings once every month, and we've invited our town councilors to be involved, as well as our planning advisory committee. And every month we're trying to chew on a different topic in the official plan and get public involvement and engagement to see how the town feels in terms of different aspects that's covered in our official plan. Our official plan is basically a land use control policy document that provides direction to the town in terms of how to manage things such as growth and how to manage land use control and come up with solutions to problems, or come up with ideas for us to make the town a better place and provide direction in terms of the future that we're trying to undertake. So in terms of a recap from our last meeting, we provided a launch of our meeting that Katie managed to have everyone break into groups, and what we were working on was seeing what people were interested in terms of the town, in terms of the direction we want to take the town. And so we're going to be doing that again at our next meeting as well, as part of following the Planning Act and the legislative requirements, because we have to give notice in the newspaper in terms of the amount of time preceding the meeting. So we did that. So what we end up having is that we have minutes from that previous meeting in terms of what everyone was looking to, the key issues that everyone was looking at in terms of those breakout groups. We have that up on our website now, and so that's very good. And so we're happy to have all that input, and so we're looking forward to continuing on through our process. Does anyone have any questions, or anybody have any input from that previous meeting that we had? Okay, great. Katie, do you want to keep going?
Sounds great. Yeah, so as Brad was saying, we got some really great sharing last time, and it was really excellent to hear some of your vision. So we'll be getting more participation from you a little bit later as well to hear what you think about the topics that we're covering today. So in today's meeting, we're just going to review the guidelines for participation. We're going to talk about what exists currently in the official plan, what could change, and of course, getting your input. So we'll have a chance to break into some smaller groups and have some discussions. And then in your groups, you'll come back to the main group and share a little bit about what you discussed. And so what are some of the guidelines for participation? So we really do honor diversity. So diversity in all senses. So what are different ideas that you can be bringing? Interdependence, we do rely on each other. There is a lot of interdependence, especially in community. And then authentic dialogue. So we do ask that you bring whatever is true for you in this moment. What we're here to do is to respect ourselves and to respect others, to be open and curious and participate with your ideas, questions, observations, and of course your opinions. And what we're not here to do is to criticize, to judge right or wrong, to use harsh language, or to make this my issue is the most important. So just a little reminder about what we're expecting with your participation here tonight. All right. And next we have today's topic, one of today's topics, which is the growth management. So Brad, over to you.
There you go. Okay, yeah. So we wanted to talk about growth management and what we see the town's going to move towards the next 20 years. And so currently in the official plan provides that direction. So the town provided a study back in 2019 regarding the direction that we see the town moving towards in terms of development. And so I've talked to the county planner. The county ultimately approves our official plan. And so I checked in with the county, and they said it's okay to use those numbers that we used in 2019 since that was relatively recent. And so that target is for a population of 8,000 people in the next 20 years, and the population is currently 6,000. So you're looking at a growth of 2,000 people in the next 20 years. And so in the last couple of decades, the town has done quite a bit in terms of pursuing opportunities for growth. There's been a lot of studies that have been completed in terms of annexing lands for future development, as well as a lot of infrastructure that's been put in place. So for example, a secondary plan was completed for north of 7 back in 2001 to 2005. And other additional studies were done, such as annexing other lands for the west and the northern land. So back in those early 2000s, the town recognized that in order to continue and foster growth, that annexing lands, which means taking lands from the neighboring townships and incorporating it within the municipality, was needed to have enough developable land to proceed and move forward with development. And the big infrastructure project in the last few years has been the sewage lagoons improvement. So for quite some time, the limitations for growth in the town was the infrastructure capacity, specifically for sewage. And so through the use of infrastructure master plans for those new annex lands, as well as the sewage lagoons, then the town is now in a good position to foster growth if that's the direction the town wants to proceed with. In 2014, the town used a consulting firm to look at demographics and to look at the projections for population. And as you all probably know, with the location of the town of Perth where it is, there's potential for a lot of growth in the town, specifically because of proximity to Kingston and Ottawa, and the town being known as a retirement community, and the potential for more seniors to come to this town due to its small town appeal and the high quality of life that everyone seems to enjoy in the town of Perth. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yep. And so this 2019 study that I'm referring to in terms of the town of Perth was based off of the Lanark County does a review for the entire county every 5 years. So that study was done in 2017 and 18. And I believe what happened was that the numbers that were dedicated to Perth were lower than what the town of Perth was anticipating. So that 2014 study provided two examples for growth. To 8,000 people or to 10,000 people was the option. The overall conclusions from that 2014 study was that there would have to be a lot of ducks would have to be lined up for perfect conditions to occur for the town to get to 10,000 population in the next 20 years. So the ultimate conclusion was a growth projection of 8,000 people. So that's where that 2019 study concluded with, and then conversation occurred with the county to confirm that was where the town of Perth anticipated growth would occur with these annexed lands, with this investments in infrastructure and all these studies taking place. It now makes sense that the town could grow to 8,000 people. So in this official plan amendment that was completed in 2019, that was the conclusions to that. Can I get the next slide, please? So specifically, the question is, well, where is development going to occur in the town in the next 20 years? And then what's that density going to look like? And how is it going to come about? So I just wanted to break down for you some of the methodology from that study. So for example, can you give me some more information there? Oh, yes. So for example, first was an inventory of the vacant residential lands currently in the town, what the current zoning is for what's the current zoning for the lands that are vacant and what the density could be. Also, by looking at the infrastructure master plans done 10 or 15 years ago, we could see what capacity do we have for water and sewer to service new lands and what that density could be. A density of 16 units per hectare was used in this methodology in 2019 based on the density of current greenfield subdivisions that have been developed in the town in the last 10 to 15 years. As well, an average of 1.87 persons per household was also utilized in those calculations based on the current trends of what the population in a household currently is. As well as current research and what the town has seen was an intensification rate of just over 20%. So that means the redevelopment of properties within the town limits was at 20% in terms of year-over-year changes. Currently in the official plan, its target is 16%. So just the idea that there is a lot of interest to take any type of land that's vacant in the downtown area or within the limits and see what development could occur on those lands. Sorry. So again, part of that study, it was identified that based on these assumptions right here, it was determined that 11 hectares of land needed to be located within the town to continue to foster development in the next 20 years. And so there's lands like north of 7 lands are the largest lands that are developable within the town, as well as the Portmore lands are the largest lands to the east of the town that could be developed through continued subdivisions, or we could look at ways to develop all of that. So in summary, that official plan study illustrated that there was enough lands within the settlement boundary and incorporated the lands that are annexed. And it actually even shows that we don't actually need to annex any future lands until more study is completed. So for example, what we'd anticipate is that Lanark County would do an additional study in 2022 or 2023, and to see if our growth projections are on target. So the town doesn't need to expand its boundary anytime soon, because this study in 2019 showed that there was enough capacity with the lands that we currently have that there is still potential for growth in the future. And so the way that this 2019 study looked at development in the next 20 years is that a certain percentage would be for intensification, a certain percentage would go to the vacant residential lands that are currently zoned appropriately for residential lands, and that 15% would be new residential lands. And so what that means is it's these lands that weren't zoned residential quite yet, they're just known as new development lands, and that not until that we could be allowed to develop those lands following the county policy, that those lands are just within the town and they're just defined and as future developable lands. And so that's what future development lands being that they're annexed, they're within the town limits, but we wouldn't proceed with developing those properties until we get direction from the county and to see if we need to increase our growth projections in the next 20 years. So that's how the growth management is currently spelled out in our official plan, and that direction was provided by that 2019 study. So overall, we're suggesting that we wouldn't need to make major changes to our official plan in terms of what our current growth projections are for the town because of this 2019 study, but that's the direction that's been taken. And then this is a map showing some of these development potential areas within the town. Number 1 and number 2 on this map is the Meadows of Perth subdivision that's currently under construction. Number 1 and number 2 would be phase 1 and phase 2. And then number 3 is actually the town-owned lands. No, sorry, number 3 is a parcel of residential land that I believe is currently for sale. So 3 and 4 are part of those north of 7 lands that the town will need to continue to install and invest in infrastructure to support the development of those lands in the future. Number 5 and 6 are the current Portmore lands. 6 is the existing phase 5 development, which is Senator's Gate Drive. So since the study, I believe most of those houses have been built or in the process of being built. And then number 5 is the future developable lands on the Portmore property that could also foster quite a few new homes in that area. Number 7 is known as the Tayview lands. And again, part of this 2019 study, those lands were brought into the town settlement area. And then number 8 is the current golf course that is potentially developable in terms of those residential lands. But the 2019 study showed that a significant amount of infrastructure would have to be invested in to develop those lands, and such as a bridge, for example, and extension of services. So that's the example of where some of the growth could occur in the town in terms of greenfield development. So overall, to provide an answer to Gail in terms of what the difference is between the official plan and the strategic plan, the official plan is underneath the Planning Act, and it's basically looking at policies in the lens of land use policy and control. We are able to look at different lands in the town and define it as residential or industrial or commercial, and it's the appropriate use of lands and segregation of them to ensure compatibility between different land uses. And we look at different issues that the town is facing, and we try to incorporate that into land use and policies and eventually zoning bylaws, which go down to the site-specific detail to say how high a fence should be, or how far a house should be set back from the road, for example, or what some limitations we put on commercial development. A strategic plan, which the town is currently completing. Town council has been had a couple meetings now to discuss an overall strategic plan. And a strategic plan is more high level than an official plan, and it provides strategic plan in terms of different policies that the town wants to take on. So it's strategic direction of the overall guidance for the town, and then it may incorporate some components of growth management. So for example, town council is looking at what will growth look like in the next 5 years. And so I've provided some summary of what development might be in the town in the next 5 years. And then town council will come up with, you know, what are some types of the strategic direction do we need to look at as we proceed with that. And then the ultimate question with any new development is, how is the town going to support that with the infrastructure? In most municipalities, it's the idea of that build it and they will come. The town has to invest money to support water and sewer and roads and infrastructure so that development can be constructed. And then in exchange, you know, there's tax revenue and development charges that helps pay for those services. And then finally, on my last slide here is just an example of the growth potential of the town of Perth versus other municipalities in Lanark County. Can I get that last slide? Yeah, so Perth comes in at a 36% increase in population to the year 2038, which is at the lower end versus the booming metropolis of Carleton Place and Beckwith. So this is this example. So one of the key highlights in this example is that yes, Perth anticipates healthy growth of 36% for the next 20 years. However, our neighboring municipalities such as Drummond, North Elmsley, and Tay Valley also are expecting increased population growth. So in terms of a service center for this community and the surrounding community, there is going to be continued population growth, or that's the projections in other towns' growth management strategies. So something to be aware of as we move forward. And so that is all for my presentation. Back to Katie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brad. So here we'll take any initial comments or questions or concerns, anything that Brad mentioned that you would like to know more about. So
may I say something?
Yes, please.
Yes, May, through you to Brad. Could you, I think this bears in mind mentioning any time we discuss this plan, however many times you have to say it. Can you speak briefly as to the work that you have done and that this council has supported and worked towards in relation to clarifying issues over development, and in particular in relation to green space and trees?
Sure. I guess in terms of what you're looking for there, yeah, there's a few initiatives that the town has taken in the last year in terms of green space and trees. One was a site alteration bylaw that the town passed in 2020. The site alteration bylaw many municipalities have in place, and it basically prevents a landowner on a certain parcel of land from clearing trees or removing topsoil or getting lands ready for development. And so often it really initiated out of municipalities on the outside of Toronto, where topsoil was being transported to rural municipalities from Toronto because of all the development, and then that was being piled up on lands, or lands were being cleared for development. So it's a very proactive measure by a municipality. And so the idea is that a site alteration on the lands won't occur until after a planning application has been approved. Another aspect that the town looked at was a tree conservation bylaw, very similar to the site alteration bylaw, where it's specifically only for lands greater than 1 acre. And the idea of a tree conservation bylaw at this stage is to provide more education to both town staff, the development community, and the public at large, with the benefits of trees and their value. And that tree conservation bylaw basically says to anyone with lands greater than 1 acre within the town that you need a permit to cut down any trees on your property of a certain size. So it doesn't stop development. It's not the idea isn't to prevent any development. It's just a first step to say, hey, just so you know, there are trees here. We're not. The idea is that we're not sterilizing any development lands, but it is a first step to raise the awareness of the benefits of trees. And then finally, a third aspect that the town worked on just last year was a parkland dedication bylaw, which is following the Municipal Act and the Planning Act. Municipalities are allowed to request up to 5% of residential development lands to be dedicated to a town for parkland. And so moving forward with any greenfield development, the town would be expecting, and town council gets to decide how that parkland gets handed over to the municipality. And for smaller sites, such as our Lanark Lifestyles Phase 2, for example, for smaller site plans, we still can ask for cash in lieu of parkland, and it's 5% of the value. And so in terms of any of those developments, that the town can then use those monies to acquire more parkland or to increase the facilities on current parkland. Does that help answer your question, Councillor Bird?
Perfect. It's I just liked all the information to be out there, especially when we're talking about planning. And of course, we are, as a council, working on the strat plan, as has been mentioned, and the two really do have to marry.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Brad, you said that I think it was Area 3 was owned by the town and for sale. Has Area 4 been purchased by anyone?
Oh, sorry, to clarify, maybe we can go back to that map. I may have misspoke. I think the one property there north of 7, I'm unsure if it was, I've just had a few inquiries about that particular property, and then that person, so yeah, number 3 is privately owned, and the piece of purple immediately north of that is town-owned land. And so,
okay.
So all those lands were studied with a secondary plan between the years 2002 and 2007, I believe. And so that secondary plan is basically a more detailed plan, and there's infrastructure studies have been done to say how would these lands proceed with development. And so the town-owned land there was specifically utilized to for parks, or for a future recreational center, or for a future school. So that's what those lands have been dedicated there in terms of the overall secondary plan. Because of a lot of changes to the Planning Act in the last couple of years, it might be fair time for us to consider an update to that secondary plan soon if we foresee more development coming online for those north of 7 lands.
Thank you.
So next we have Brody. Your hand is up. Please unmute. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks, Brad. Just a question for you about the relative emphasis of development north and south of 7. I'm just kind of curious if the town has a view on, you know, since we're looking at the official plan here, going forward, whether we see, you know, what percentage, roughly speaking, or type of growth do we see happening, you know, north of 7 versus south of 7, like closer to the urban sort of core of Perth?
Right, great question. So another point in our official plan, it says that future growth in the town will be represented by low, medium, and high density. And it's something along the lines of 60% of future growth will be low density, 20% will be medium density, and I believe it's 10% is the number for high density. So that's the direction that we have currently in the official plan of what does density look like as we move forward. So all these lands north of 7, most of it is zoned currently at that R1 density, or residential first density, which is the lowest density. Same thing with the Perthmore lands to the east, that's all currently zoned residential first density. So the way that the official plan reads at this moment and the maps show is that it would be currently planned for subdivisions. Now, based, like I say, the changes to the Planning Act, the Planning Act is looking for more intensification, more efficient use of resources, assess the impacts of climate change and how are we going to be resilient to climate change. When you start to factor in these updates to the Planning Act, we need to, reconsider possibly, do we want to have subdivisions moving forward? Do we need to look at more mixed use? How are we looking at employment lands, what have you? There's a lot of, aspects for us to consider. So that's me trying to answer your question in terms of what we currently see as development of lands north of 7, and that's the density that's there. And again, those assumptions were made back in the early 2000s about what density could happen up there, and then what services the town could provide to go up there. Now, to answer your question about south of Highway 7, at that point, most of those lands are all developed, and there's less opportunity for greenfield development. And so anything south of Highway 7 is basically infill and intensification, where we might have a developer saying, hey, there's this 100 by 200 foot lot in town. What can I do on these lands? Can I change the zoning, or is the zoning permit me to build an apartment? And so that's the difference. So anything within the town that's not developed is infill and intensification, where we do have a lot of developers asking to build apartments right now. And then to the west and to the east and to the north, we have greenfield lands where there's a lot more land available, and where developers historically have built subdivisions and may continue to want to continue to build subdivisions. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. So I think what you're saying is that if our projection is to reach closer to 8,000 people in the next, couple of decades or a decade or so, most of that growth is going to happen north of 7 or east of 7, residential.
Yes, correct. That's according to the plan. That's where that growth would be directed. And then I would say that the biggest change in the last couple of years is definitely this change from the province. The province has come out with a new policy that says any residential parcel of land in the province can now have an addition to the house, as well as a tiny home or a small home in the backyard. I think there's a lot of benefits to that new policy, and it's basically, again, directed to the GTA. I have a friend at the city of Vaughan who says the city of Vaughan is completely built out, and all that the town can do now is intensification projects. So there's a lot of benefits to infill and intensification, especially in utilize the efficient use of resources and town infrastructure. But it also comes with potential impacts to the neighborhood as well if you're going to be increasing the density of your community. So it's a lot of things for us to figure out.
Thank you.
But if I could add, there are developments south of 7 that are sort of in the works that would, as it stands, add to the town's population by about 500 just in this year. Yes,
correct. So we have the Lanark Lifestyle Seniors Home, that's phase 2. It's seniors apartment building. That's 120 units right there. And with that occupancy assumption that I used at 1.87, that's almost 240 people right there with that development. And we do have a few other apartments in the southern portion of town that may come online this year or very soon in 2022 that would increase the population as well.
There's a question that relates to that, I think, in the chat. Did the trends seem to follow the COVID, like migration to rural, impact the population projections?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if I have the full answer on that, but yes, I think the town of Perth, as well as many other rural municipalities outside of a large city such as Ottawa, is already having development pressure even before COVID. I think COVID's exacerbated some of that direction, and so we're just trying to figure out, is this going to be a flash in the pan in terms of pressures on the town, or is this going to be a long-term trend in terms of development in these small towns?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Roddy,
I asked one of the real estate brokers, and of all the sales in the last year, 30% the people are from the GTA and 50% from Ottawa.
Wow, very interesting. Yeah. Gail McCormick asks, where does mixed use fit in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think mixed use is a term that's used in the Planning Act and the provincial policy statement quite a bit now in terms of we want walkable communities. We want to look at food deserts in terms of, you know, where can people access food and how can people access services. So I think more and more when we look at new development applications coming online in this municipality and across the provinces, this idea of mixed use. So it's a pretty common type of land use planning that we're looking at in this day and age, especially in larger cities. And I think it's slowly coming to smaller municipalities as well.
Excellent. Next from Michael Flynn, any idea of what our current population is now in 2021 over the 2016 number of 5,930?
Yeah, I think town staff was looking at that to come up with a specific number. Stats Canada is doing an updated census this year in 2021. The last Stats Canada census was 2016. And based on our numbers, we believe the town is around 6,200 population currently.
Wow.
Great, thank you. Tracy Julian, next, could you clarify the definition of affordable you are using when in the COP, it states a goal of 25% of new rental and home ownership will be affordable. Are you using the provincial policy statement definition?
Right, great question, Tracy. I think we'll get to affordable housing and all that definitions when we try and tackle the affordable housing issues in a future planning, in a future official plan session. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I think we're looking at August or September. We'll try and look at residential policies, and that's when I hope we'll have a discussion on more details about affordable housing.
One more question from Louise McDermott in the chat. Walkable communities are an important part of responsible in responding to climate change, diminishing the use of cars. How does the town plan to facilitate residents crossing Highway 7 by bicycle or on foot?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have an answer to that at this moment, but we can work on it.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions so far or any clarifications about anything? Yes, go ahead.
If I may, just on that last question, speaking as someone that's sat on the council for just this one period so far, the MTO is responsible for Highway 7, and it has not been the easiest process in the world getting them to look at our most serious intersection there at Drummond and 7. And they have a plan, or they're working on a plan to make some changes on Highway 7 as it is. But anytime we talk about Highway 7, it's the town chasing the MTO and the province, and it's not really straightforward because it's not just a single decision by our town.
Thanks for the input.
So if I could ask, have you done all of the questions from the chat?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe I have, yeah.
A question, seeing as we're talking about growth, there is some sentiment that I've heard, campaigning and so on, that some people don't like the idea of newcomers, growth, et cetera, if some of the people that are joining in on this meeting could express what they've heard or how they feel about growth. Is it a good thing?
I love that question, because what I'm going to invite is in our subgroups here to have a little bit of a discussion about this. So
All right.
let's bring that to your subgroups. What would your ideal be to accommodate development? What are the pros and cons? And so that fits in nicely, Judy, with that. You might see that there's cons. You might be, we don't like outsiders, or we want to have that small town feel, or whatever it is. So now's the chance to have a bit of a discussion in your subgroup. So I'll make a few groups, and then You'll have about 10 minutes to discuss, and then we'll come back and share what was discussed.
Katie, you just want to give a recap to people who are new so they know what the breakout group discussion is?
Yes. Wait, are you asking me if I want to do that, or were you? Yeah. So as Brad was discussing, the goal in this next plan is going to stick similar to what the plan has already been, which is to grow to 2,000 in the next 20 years, 2,000 extra residents. And there have been some lands already set aside. And we know that this is an important part of development, and we'll talk about economic development next. So what are your thoughts about the pros and cons of these potential growth developments? Anything you want to add?
No, that's good.
Okay. So in your groups, just discuss what would your ideal be to accommodate for this development, and what are some of the pros and the cons? So just have a little think about that. And I will put us into breakout rooms. And you'll have about 10 minutes. So we'll come back and have a discussion then.
Okay. What the heck?
Excellent. All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. So if you haven't already chosen a spokesperson for your group, please go ahead and nominate someone by chat. And what I'd like to hear from you is what is one ideal for accommodating develop, and one pro and one con. All right, let's go with the room number 1, which was Louise, Michael, Shannon, and the town of Perth. Louise, you are just on mute still. I see her speaking, so.
We were a little puzzled as to what to put for ideal.
Okay.
So we went into the pros and cons.
Great.
Pros were things like diversity, and an increased income base for the towns to provide facilities and services, an increased workforce, more opportunities for business, industry, etc., so that the town is more of a mix than a bedroom community, and employment opportunities.
And a con.
Con, we didn't want to lose the charm and small town feel of that we have, that we feel now.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Room number 1. Room 2, Alan, Brent, David, and Phil.
Hello, hello, hello. I'm just going to, I really didn't zoom into the answers that you wanted, and that our timing was such that, boom, we just said, you're going to report, so bang, here I am. So I think we all agreed that we have to look at some form of growth, primarily to diversify the population base within the community. To just look at staying where we are means aging, which means getting rid of schooling, which means get rid of, and eventually that collapses, and what do you have left? You've lost your workforce, you've lost everything. So there was a huge, I think that is one of the prime things. One of the big issues that we are going to face, and we are facing, is straight out infrastructure. At what point do the expenses of north of 7 actually get recouped back in terms of taxation base? 30 years is a long time to wait before finally the amount of taxes that are being collected covers the costs of the fire, of the police, of the water, of the roads, of the shoveling, it's not just as simple. Okay. We came back to the issue that Councillor Bird raised when he talked about difficulty dealing with the MTO across the Highway 7. And in our group, particularly, all of us know the experience of the Perth-Moore division and coming across a very dangerous, very site-limited railway crossing that is incredibly poorly maintained. No one ever anticipated that 4, 5, 6 little houses on the other side of that track would become a major subdivision and now a major area of growth. And so as we look at that, we start to realize, oh, it might be lovely, but there has to be some serious thought given to integrating those people into our town, integrating north of 7 into our town. And so it was kind of that sort of thing. Well, we look at the bonuses to growth, we also realize that there are massive costs if we can't get people safely across an intersection in the winter. Does that make sense at all? And I think that's what we were coming at, and we all kind of shared on that. I'll just share one last quick little quip with you. We talked a lot about the long swamp, which is out there, which seems to be getting smaller every year. We talked about the John A. Fenwick Memorial Bypass that they keep talking about, which seems to have been going on for 30 years in discussion and never, ever happening. And there's just so many things, like,
I can see, there's a lot of things, Brent.
Yeah,
we have one more subject to cover, so I'm going to
okay.
So that's it. Yeah. What I'm hearing is a lot to think about when we're thinking about growth. We've got to think about infrastructure and supporting the growth.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Brent. Next, we have Barry, Gary, Liz, and Trevor.
We had a great discussion in our group, and in terms of pros, we talked about, again, the fact that we will have a much more diverse population, which will certainly contribute to all aspects of our community life, be it volunteer, be it sales and businesses. Also, we're hoping that with that increased population, that we get some entrepreneurs that will create businesses and work here for our community. When it comes to cons, increased traffic, the perennial parking challenge in town will continue. And also from a town services point of view, with increased population, all services that the town provides, of course, will have 2,000 more residents to serve. So those were the themes that we came up with.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gary. And next we have room 4, Ben, Connor, Ed, and Michael.
Okay, I'll go ahead for our group. We talked about livability of the town of Perth. We'd like to see the growth stay the south side of Highway 7, make Perth more livable, workable by intensification downtown. We think that would lead to positive growth, new businesses, and new types of families to Perth. The con of new growth is we're not sure we need to move above Highway 7. We feel that growing communities up there, they're going to feel alienated from the rest of the town just because of the geographic location and the way Highway 7 is currently set up. It's not a very safe or pedestrian friendly area. Those are probably our main points.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ed. And next we have room 5, Brody, Gail, Judy, and Tracy. Judy, you are on mute.
Okay. We didn't nominate a spokesperson, but I could go ahead and do that. Our ideas were very similar to everyone else's, that, growth is good, more diversity and so on. But we wouldn't want it to change the town. We want it to be, walkable and friendly the same way it is now. And Brody brought up a great idea again about the north of 7 thing. How is it going to be integrated with the rest of the town? And you have to manage development. It can't just happen grow like topsy. It has to be managed. And we were just finishing as, let's see, it was Gail, I think, brought up we started talking about parking, but didn't come to any conclusions. There are no conclusions about parking.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judy. And the last room, we have Carolyn and Roddy.
And we had Brian and our group too on and off on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
We had trouble getting to the topic. One thing that was brought up is whatever the growth is, it should be green. And that kind of has some inference onto built form too, high rises, green roofs, things like that. And then the other main comment we talked about was the challenges of perpetuating the small village. And people have talked about that, parking and stuff like that. Even though we didn't talk about it, I'm gonna pitch in my own opinions a little bit more forcefully. And certainly at the low density, we know there's a big demand for that. So that's almost a pro, but it eats up land supply. The medium, the opportunity to densify kind of the donut around the core to put people where those services are is something I think we should try to achieve in looking at where we want the growth to go. And then one of the problems with is also the densification for the medium and high is community buy-in. And also curiously, one of the problems is finding sensitive builders who are willing to build the kinds of buildings, particularly the medium and high density that the community wants. So that's our input.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Well, Brad, you have lots of input. You have some additions to add to your list here. And next we have Connor, who is going to take us through more information about some economic development. Welcome.
Hey, hi everyone. My name's Connor. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator with the town of Perth. And yeah, let's kind of keep this growth topic going. And we're going to talk about economic development. Next slide, please. So really, when sort of looking at it, is the economy of Perth has remained relatively resilient over the past 25 years. There's a very diversified economy here. It's engaged in primary, secondary, tertiary sectors. It's got a large number of jobs, 6,500, a lot greater than the labor force that we have here. There's really only a 2,500 person labor force actually in town, but there's a 6,500 number of jobs located here. So we are really much an employment center of Lanark County, and indeed really this area of Eastern Ontario. And then again, going off that sort of diversified thing is could you go back? And then, so we have a large market area as well. So some people have talked about, services for 6,000. We really have services that serve about 30,000 people. So we're going as far west as Caladar. We're going north into the Lanark Highlands. We're going south as well towards Westport. There's a lot of people who rely not just on the town of Perth for work, but they rely on us for services, their shopping, their recreation, things like that. So it's a bigger economy than it seems on the surface. So what's going on with economic development in the town? We've undertaken a lot of studies and projects over the past couple of years really to better support economic development and the economy. So these have been in the form of an investment readiness plan in 2018, a new strategic plan in 2019, a enhancement to the website in the form of more digital information, quicker statistics, a more responsive way for developers and investors to get information on the town. And then kind of going into 2020 when things got out of whack, we had the COVID-19 supports, so which really pushed forward things like business digitization and enhanced marketing and taking advantage of digital infrastructure. So it really wasn't all bad. We were able to actually really accelerate some important economic work here in the town of Perth. And all this sort of supported what was already sort of in the official plan for economic development, which was looking at making it easier to invest in town, which was supporting our digital infrastructure, which was promoting business retention and growth, things like that. So we can move on to the next slide now, please. So while the town has remained resilient and relatively stable, the growth is changing. You know, we have seen some of those manufacturing businesses close over the years and move on, but they're being replaced by small and medium-sized businesses. And it's always important to remember that these businesses really give you 95% of your jobs and your growth. So they're extremely important, and we're seeing a lot more of those here in town. You see what's composed of our downtown and our industrial areas. The small and medium-sized businesses really pushing the growth. Tourism as well. You know, we always know how busy it gets here once the weather starts to warm up. We're even seeing some of it right now, and tourism is really important, and it has gotten more important over the years. We've got lots of businesses that rely on this season. We've got all the events that typically happen. All these things are really big economic drivers for the town. They bring a lot of out-of-town visitors. They bring a lot of the seasonal residents in the area to town, and they really bring a lot of revenue for many of our businesses who serve that industry. Food and beverage production is something that's also kind of been growing. We've seen the new distilleries, the new breweries. We've got kombucha that's made downtown. We've got wholesale bakeries, plenty of places like that, a chocolate factory, you know, company. Those have really started to emerge over the past 5 years, 10 years, and it's really anticipated that we can see a lot more of that. People are very interested in that. There's a lot of opportunity for food and beverage production here within Ontario. And services. So like everybody else, our economy is also transitioning a little bit more to services. And as we are a service center, that goes without saying. So next slide, please. And another thing that, you know, people don't always realize is that community development is a big part of economic development. It's not just the jobs, it's not just the businesses, it is developing the community as well. We can't attract people to work on our jobs if we don't have an excellent community for them to live in. So we have some of that already, and it's important to keep building upon that. So high quality lifestyle attracts new residents and businesses. People move out here for the quality of the town that we already have, the amount of services. So it's important to maintain that and try to grow it even further though, and not kind of get complacent, find new ways that we can make it more walkable, make it more bikeable, have more services. And it's important that we maintain sort of public investment in our many infrastructure. Our arena is important, our pool is important, things like that are again very attractive, and sort of that other hard infrastructure that Brad touched on, our water services, things like that. So there are some challenges though that the economy is facing as we try to figure out the right way to go forward. We've got a aging population. So Perth's population already is about 10 years older than average than the rest of the province and the country. So that is pretty difficult for our economy as it stands. It's hard for them to find the labor that they need to fill those needs. And sure, we've got that large market area, but it was a challenge before the pandemic, and I don't anticipate it, you know, being gone for long. That challenge is going to come back because companies like 3M, Albany, and even some of our smaller and medium-sized businesses that are trying to grow need skilled workers, and it's hard to find that in a town that is overall aging. So that's going to, you know, remain a challenge, this sort of workforce attraction. We need to get more people out here to maintain that economy and help it grow further, because there is a high demand for it from our businesses. And infrastructure and construction costs, this isn't just for us, this is for other people too. You know, because of the pandemic, construction costs are way up, but even before, it was very difficult to convince some companies to build. They're looking for leasable space. This is kind of a hindrance because, yeah, it's expensive to build, it's expensive to get land, it's expensive to buy material. So, and that's only going to kind of go up. And we'll talk on that too from the town side, kind of continue off of the previous discussion on growth. And then sort of my last point is this. So like, here's an example. Here's our industrial park. The servicing costs for this park are beyond what we can really get for selling the plots of land. So that is a challenge, almost disincentivizes us to kind of move these properties. We're getting lots of interest, and we got to reevaluate our pricing thing. We can overcome this, but again, this is sort of one of the challenges we face, is servicing new land is placing a lot of pressures on us. So, but there could be a lot of future priorities to grow the economy, and these could include any of the following. It could be ensuring an adequate supply of land to meet all needs. We've talked about changing land use patterns. We've talked about where new sectors are coming from, expanding and densifying the central business area, talking about downtown. Let's take it up along Wilson. Let's take it further down Gore. Let's expand it out more places, have more ground level commercial spaces to meet that demand, to meet that walkable need that people are looking for, could serve as a good attraction for businesses and residents. Encourage sustainable development. You know, the town's already taken a lot of steps towards adapting to climate change. And how can we help our businesses and new businesses meet those goals? But that'll also mean targeting sustainable businesses, the green sector, you know, the technology associated with that. Businesses here can maybe transitioning to serve that sector as well. Or we can make sure we ensure investments in high quality physical and digital infrastructure. You know, we've talked a little bit about, again, working from home. So there's going to be an impact. I know I've already seen, we've got some people relocating out here to take advantage of work from home trends. So should we invest more in our digital infrastructure to stay up to date, to sort of maintain that advantage, because people are going to want to move out here more and more, especially as we can sort of anticipate the high growth, not only within this county, but within Ottawa, within Toronto, within Montreal. We're strategically placed along Highway 7, a key secondary corridor between all these metropolises. So there's something to consider right there. And then lastly, should we support and enhance the town's arts, heritage, culture assets, promote these tourism opportunities? This part of the economy will continue to be important, especially with the emphasis right now on local tourism. And people might really get interested and hooked on that for 5, 10, maybe even more years, really exploring their backyards in that sense. So should we be putting a little bit more money in designing policies around supporting arts and heritage and culture? So that's kind of the bulk of what I had to say, so we can open it up to everybody else.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Connor. So Connor has taken us through a little bit more of a reflection as well on different aspects of economic development, covering some of the challenges and things to look for. So any initial comments or questions or concerns after what he shared?
May I speak again?
No, I have a question as well.
Yeah, I can wait for someone else. I don't want to take.
Go ahead. Continue.
Connor has mentioned this, and I tend to bang on about this a bit, but the services that this town provides to the other communities is something that the town has wrestled with in previous previous years. And also the fact that if we do expand, we have to be very aware of, as we expand, the law of unintended consequences, where we're starting to pay, by definition, more for police, snow blowing, and other services. And Connor referenced that. And apart from, if we did certain things, the taxpayers of Perth have to pay from for something, as Bren mentioned, that we won't get paid back on those buildings in 30 years.
I am experiencing some choppiness. Connor, did you catch that?
Same thing, got a little choppy at the end there, Dave, unfortunately. But,
yeah. So I think what I heard was other communities are relying on Perth for services, and something about we wouldn't get paid back for those services for many years.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a challenge the economy faces, and again, going off of Brad's presentation on growth management, there's going to be all those extra people moving to the townships, and they're still going to rely on our services, but they're also going to be bringing their spending dollars as well to our businesses. and also the services that the town provides. So.
Okay, and if there's anything else to clarify, then we can put that in the chat as well. So I know there was a few other questions. If we have others that want to unmute and go ahead and ask your question.
Well, it's not a question, an observation, but the advantage that the town has as opposed to the townships, like, you know, I heard this a lot, you know, I'm moving out to the township because it's so much cheaper. The second question that people ask of real estate agents is, what's the internet service like? And it may improve in the upcoming years, but it isn't now. It's spotty. So the town has consistent broadband, high quality broadband service, and that's something I think we need to promote.
Excellent, thank you. Next, I think Gary.
Thank you, Katie. Connor, do we as a town proactively approach companies, various sectors, various professional associations in terms of trying to attract all of those various organizations to come and set up here in Perth?
We do some active marketing, but the challenge we really face is that Perth has a very low inventory of available commercial spaces. So a lot of the inquiries I will end up getting, or a lot of the conversations revolve around, I'm looking for a space to lease. I don't want to build. And we don't have a lot of that. We have a very, very low inventory. And really, we don't have any, if I had somebody come to me looking for space for 60 employees to have a manufacturing thing, but they only wanted to lease, and we can't take that growth because we don't have that asset. Same thing goes with our downtown area and our other commercial spaces. There's just very, very little inventory for people to actually be able to move into.
A comment as a follow-up, if I may. Certainly, we've seen a lot about migration the past year and a half because of COVID. We're discovering that more and more people can work from home. So I would suggest that from a marketing point of view, there's great opportunity to market, particularly I'm thinking of the tech sector, in terms of attracting people to come and live here that can work from home. Depending upon the industry, physical infrastructure is not playing such a large role as it has in the past. And I think the tech sector in particular is certainly a sector we could target and probably get some more people living here.
That's a great point, Gary, and I very much agree. I know, for example, with Shopify's policy to allow everybody to work from home, we've seen some of those employees move out here. So, in our close proximity really to Canada, it's like 60 kilometers. So again,
exactly.
That tech sector, and if need be, we can definitely try to encourage, say, shared working spaces once people want to do that again. So I agree, plenty of opportunity there.
Thank you.
Someone mentioned earlier about like 3M, for example, having difficulty getting employees, and one of the reasons is, you know, the baby boomers retiring, that sort of thing. And you know, the other facet, I mean, yes, we could attract people from Toronto, people from Ottawa, but immigration has slowed down because of COVID. But I think immigration is essential for having employees in the future, because there just aren't qualified people to fill certain jobs.
Well, I just wanted to make one point about the aging population in Perth, that one value of that, they come from various areas and cities and backgrounds, and we have a wealth of very qualified and an intelligent aging population that could be looked at as a great mentoring source as well, that can be paired with different groups within the community that can be a big asset to Perth as well, because they have a wealth of knowledge. They aren't just old doddering people. When we say aging people,
Great point. Thank you for sharing that.
we're not just talking about 90 years old. I mean, we're talking about 60-year-old people that are still in their prime and have a wealth of knowledge to offer as mentors.
Excellent. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
So, yeah, we'll go to Brody, and then whoever just said they would have a question, we'll go to them next. Brody has.
Yeah, hi. I'll be quick. I don't want to monopolize too much time. Thanks for the presentation, Connor. I thought it was very helpful. I actually agree with a lot of what has already been said, and you know, Gary, you pointed out, you know, the importance of branding and attracting sort of a certain type of creative companies to Perth, which I think is a really smart idea. The only thing I wanted to add to that was, you know, leveraging some of the assets that we have in Perth, like Algonquin College. I think that's actually, you know, something that a lot of other smaller municipalities in the county don't have, and so I'm sure there are ways that we could maximize, you know, that and sort of leverage that asset. So I just want to point that out.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Who was next?
It's Liz Sutherland. I just had a question, and I'm not sure whether the official plan is the right scope for this, but thinking about economic development, we often think about what attracts money to the location as well as jobs. And I was surprised when I moved here last summer and there's no credit union, which might provide an avenue for people to invest locally. If you think of the average senior and they spend 4 or 5% of their wealth in a given year, but the rest of it is invested. And right now it's on Bay Street and it could be here. And me as a working person, my mortgage is outside the town and it could be invested here as well. So I wonder if there's scope for a conversation around some kind of local financial institution that might bring investment and keep investment that's already here, but leaking out of the community.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much, Liz. So as you see, it's like naturally we're going to this next slide, which is what do you see as needed? So like Liz and Brody have already shared some great ideas about other ways that that this can be added to. So let's go with any other questions or clarifications. I do have one question in the chat that I'll go over first. What effect do healthcare services have on Perth's economy? For Connor.
Oh, huge.
Hospitals, etc.
Yeah, I mean, employment-wise, you know, healthcare and kind of grouped in with social assistant, there's about 600 jobs within Perth. So it's a big employer. It's one of our top 5 employers. So you think of the wages and the attraction there is in terms of jobs, it is very significant to us and very important to our economy.
Perfect. Thank you. Are there any other questions, or if you'd like to also just start contributing to what do you see as needed? So we're gonna not do a breakout, just in looking at our time right now. So please go ahead and share any opportunities that you're seeing, any anything that you see as needed. What are some other things?
I think we need to come up with a, well, and I know that Brad is working on this, looking at the number of industrial lots that we have, and they're not serviced, so they're not selling very fast. And, you know, that perhaps some of them could be used for another purpose. So we're investigating that.
Yeah, that's a great point. So yes, we're looking at, we've hired a consultant to do an industrial lands review. And so Connor and I have been working with them and we're providing them information now. So we hope to have some information from them, hopefully August or September. And that's going to hopefully feed into the next phase of economic development. And then specifically, how can we attract more businesses to our industrial lands and how can we service those businesses and get them up and running.
Excellent. Any other comments about what you're seeing is needed or other opportunities?
I would like to see some sort of plan or initiative to establish an internship or apprenticeship program in conjunction with Algonquin College to foster the trades that could be bring employment to Perth, and to so that companies would come because they see that there are already trained or employees in training, prospective employees in training for jobs that they want to fill. And especially in the realm of green building, green industry, servicing solar panels, all kinds of things, because green industry and green construction are the coming thing, and very necessary.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, to expand on that, I think we should sit down with the dean, because he's under a mandate to keep that college viable. They were fortunate in attracting the agribusiness from Kempville, but you know, with the 3M and so on, and I've heard it from the people at Albany as well, they just can't find some qualified people like millwrights or whatever. So, you know, why not liaise with those industries to find out what they need and have training programs for those needs?
Yes.
Great. So we have about 5 minutes left here. I would love to hear any more. Yeah, if you have any other questions you'd like to ask, Brad is here and available. And yeah, or any other brainstorming things that we want to hear about what you see is needed. Gail, I see you have your hand up. You are at the top of the line. And you're still on mute.
There we go.
There.
I'm wondering if it is possible to look at some kind of transit service through maybe public-private partnership and maybe with other municipalities in the area as a way of generating a bit of activity that could help the economy. I'll just throw that out as a suggestion anyway.
Yeah, that's a great question. We hope to cover that topic and more in terms of our engineering and environmental services meeting that we'll have, and we're going to talk about transportation and active transportation at that meeting. That'll happen in a couple of months. So yeah, I think that's something that's on our radar for sure.
Everything overlaps.
It's terrible for people who don't drive. To take a taxi from Perth to Smiths Falls, like say for a medical appointment, it's $40 each way.
Mm-hmm. So we have a radical question here in the chat from Ben Bennett, and he sees it as a discussion stimulator. He says, if we have only 2,500 local people working here and 4,000 people coming in from out of town, why are we looking to invest in more job creation?
I think the big thing from that is we are, the reason everybody's coming here, working here, is because this is where the businesses have located. So when you go out into Tay Valley and you go out into D&E or Lanark Highlands, you know, there's not that many businesses out there. So we are the employment center. So kind of investing in more job growth opportunities is really a regional initiative to help with the growth that we're going to see and sort of try to get the most benefits out of that. If all these people are going to come out here, do we really want to become a bedroom community is that other question. If we don't invest in job creation out here, then we run the risk of more people commuting into Ottawa and not remaining here and working.
Like 3M has a big sign out front for months that they're hiring. And I don't know, if there's people out in the townships that want work, why aren't they applying?
That's it. Well, I think we've raised some questions. We've answered a lot of questions. Brad, is there anything else that you want to say before we finish our call tonight?
No, I think this was pretty good. This is a good start on these two topics. And our next meeting will involve Roddy, who you've all met on this call. Roddy's going to be talking about natural heritage, and then Shannon Bayon and myself will talk about cultural heritage aspects as well at our next meeting.
Excellent. So my challenge to you is, how are you going to invite or get another person to come for next time? If each of us get one person to come, then we'll help meet Brad's goal. Right, Brad?
That's right.
Once they hear I'm talking, they'll run like stinks. So we're going to have to work hard to get people to come.
We'll keep spreading the word.
Okay, excellent.
I just want to say thank you, Brad and Katie and everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. We hope that this is beneficial conversations and that you're getting a lot out of them. And I think it's really helping Brad's Town of Perth process here with the plan. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Good to see everyone.
Bye.
And we'll see you in a month.
Yeah, great
Good night.
job.
Time
Thank
to
you.
enjoy some sunshine.
Yes.
So we go out of this and